It is late at night, and you are still awake, staring at a screen that never seems to stop moving. Notifications flicker in the corner of your vision. Emails pile up faster than you can answer them. And somewhere between one scroll and the next, you feel it. That quiet pressure in your chest. The sense that you are always behind, always catching up, always responding to something that demands your attention right now. You tell yourself you will rest after one more task, one more message, one more update, but the tasks do not end. The messages multiply, and the updates keep coming. The world feels loud, not just in sound, but in expectation. Everyone seems to be speaking at once, and somehow, all of it feels directed at you. And in the middle of this noise, something begins to erode. Your clarity, your patience, your sense of control. You react more quickly than you think. You speak before you understand. You absorb the chaos around you and mistake it for your own state of mind. What you are experiencing is not weakness. It is overload. It is what happens when the external world becomes louder than your internal one. But there is a quiet truth that has been known for thousands of years. Long before smartphones and endless feeds, the Stoics understood something that we have forgotten. They understood that not every battle deserves a response. Not every voice deserves your attention. Not every storm outside should be allowed to enter within. Marcus Aurelius, a man who ruled an empire and faced constant pressure, wrote to himself about the importance of stillness. He reminded himself that the mind can remain untouched, even when everything around it is in motion. He did not seek silence because the world was quiet. He sought silence because the world was not. And this is where we begin. Silence is not the absence of noise. It is the refusal to let noise define you. The first principle is this: not everything requires your reaction. In modern life, we are conditioned to respond immediately. A message arrives, and we feel compelled to answer. A comment appears, and we feel the need to defend ourselves. A problem emerges, and we rush to solve it before we fully understand it. But reaction is not the same as control. In fact, constant reaction is often a sign that control has already been lost. Imagine a workplace where tension is always present. Emails carry subtle aggression. Conversations feel like negotiations. Someone criticizes your work, not constructively, but emotionally. In that moment, your instinct is to respond, to explain, to justify, to defend your position. But what if you did not? What if you paused, not as avoidance, but as discipline? What if you allowed the moment to pass through you without immediately shaping it into a response? Silence, in this case, is not weakness. It is strength held in reserve. It is the ability to choose your response rather than surrendering it. When you do not react instantly, something interesting happens. You begin to see more clearly. You notice the tone behind the words. You recognize patterns in behavior. You separate what is real from what is emotional noise. And often, you realize that a reaction would have made things worse, not better. The Stoics believed that between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space lies your freedom. Silence expands that space. The second principle is this: your mind can remain still, even when the world is not. We often believe that peace requires quiet surroundings, that we need a perfect environment to feel calm. But this belief makes us dependent on conditions we cannot control. The Stoics rejected this idea. They understood that the external world will always be unpredictable. There will always be noise, conflict, uncertainty. The goal is not to eliminate chaos, but to become independent of it. Think about social media for a moment. You open an app, and within seconds, you are exposed to opinions, comparisons, achievements, conflicts, and endless streams of information. It is not just content, it is emotional input. Each piece invites a reaction. Each image suggests a comparison. Each headline demands attention. Without realizing it, your mind begins to mirror what it consumes. It becomes restless, scattered, reactive. But what if, instead of engaging with everything, you chose silence? Not just external silence, but internal silence. You scroll, but you do not compare. You read, but you do not absorb the emotional charge. You observe, but you do not attach. This is not indifference, it is mastery. The Stoics described the mind as a fortress, not a place of isolation, but a place of strength, a place where you decide what enters and what does not. Silence is the gatekeeper of that fortress. It allows you to witness the storm without becoming the storm. And when you practice this, something changes. The same environment that once overwhelmed you begins to lose its power. The noise is still there, but it no longer defines your internal state. You begin to experience a kind of quiet that is not dependent on circumstances, a stillness that exists even in motion. The third principle is this: silence protects your energy. In a chaotic world, energy is your most valuable resource. Not time, not attention, but energy, because energy determines how you think, how you feel, and how you act. Every unnecessary reaction drains that energy. Every argument you did not need to engage in. Every comparison you did not need to make. Every worry about things beyond your control. These are small leaks, but over time, they become significant. Consider a moment of personal setback, perhaps a career disappointment, a missed opportunity, a plan that did not work out. The immediate reaction is often emotional: frustration, self-doubt, regret. And then comes the noise: opinions from others, comparisons to those who succeeded, internal narratives that question your worth. If you engage with all of it, your energy is scattered. You lose focus. You lose direction. But if you introduce silence, something different happens. You step back. You do not rush to interpret the situation. You do not immediately label it as failure. You allow space for clarity to emerge. In that silence, you begin to see what actually happened, not what it feels like, but what it is. You identify what you can control and what you cannot. You conserve your energy for what matters. Silence, in this sense, is not passive. It is strategic. It allows you to withdraw from unnecessary battles so you can engage fully in the ones that matter. Now, all of this sounds powerful, but it must be practiced. Silence is not something you wait for. It is something you create. So here are 3 simple ways to begin. First, delay your responses. When you feel the urge to react, give yourself time. Even a few minutes can change the quality of your response. You do not need to answer every message immediately. You do not need to engage with every comment. Let the initial emotion pass before you decide what to do. Second, create moments of intentional quiet. This does not require a retreat or a special setting. It can be as simple as sitting without your phone for a few minutes, walking without music, eating without distraction. These small acts train your mind to be comfortable in silence. Rather than seeking constant stimulation, Third, practice observing without attaching. Throughout your day, notice what triggers you: a comment, a situation, a thought. Instead of reacting, simply observe it, acknowledge it, but do not follow it. This builds the ability to remain steady, even when something pulls at your attention. These practices are simple, but they are not easy. They require consistency. They require awareness. But over time, they reshape how you move through the world. You begin to respond with intention rather than impulse. You conserve your energy rather than scattering it. You experience a kind of clarity that is not easily disturbed. And perhaps most importantly, you begin to realize that you are not at the mercy of the chaos around you. The world will not become quieter. The demands will not disappear. The noise will continue. But you will change your relationship to it. You will learn that silence is not something you find when everything is calm. It is something you carry with you, even when everything is not. And in that silence, you will discover something unexpected. Not emptiness, but strength. Not isolation, but clarity. Not withdrawal, but control. So the next time the world feels overwhelming, when everything seems urgent and loud and demanding, remember this: you do not need to match the noise to survive it. You can choose silence, and in that choice, you take back something that chaos can never give you: yourself. If this idea resonates with you, take a moment today to practice it. Even in a small way. Step back, stay quiet, and notice what changes. And if you need a place to return to this kind of clarity, you can always come back here and listen again.